Today, we're going to solve a medical mystery that stretches across continents and decades. Its name alone is a real puzzle: Crimean Congo hemorrhagic fever.
So that's the big question, right? How on earth does one single disease get its name from two places that are literally 5,000 kilometers apart? You've got Crimea on the Black Sea and the Congo, deep in the heart of Africa. Well, the story that connects them, it actually begins on the battlefields of World War II. So let's start our investigation right there, in 1944. It was a pivotal year in the war, and it's where the first piece of this puzzle was discovered. Okay, so picture this. Soviet troops are fighting to reclaim the Crimean Peninsula. But in the middle of all this, soldiers start coming down with this absolutely terrifying illness. It hit fast, with a high fever, shock, and, this is the alarming part, bleeding patches that would just appear on their skin. Nobody had any idea what it was.
Well, given that this devastating outbreak was happening in Crimea, they gave the illness a pretty straightforward name: Crimean hemorrhagic fever. And for over 2 decades, that's all it was called. So the first piece of our puzzle was in place. But believe me, the story was far from over.
Now we're going to jump forward 12 years and travel thousands of kilometers away. The second crucial piece of our puzzle was about to pop up on a totally different continent. So in 1956, way down in what was then the Belgian Congo, a virus causing a very similar hemorrhagic fever was found in a patient. For years, everyone just assumed it was a completely separate disease. The connection, that didn't happen for another decade, all the way in 1969.
And 1969 is when we get that big aha moment. Scientists finally compared the viral samples from Crimea with the ones from the Congo. The result? It was stunning. They were identical. Two diseases discovered decades and continents apart were actually the exact same thing. And just like that, the puzzle was complete, and the illness officially got its new, much longer name: Crimean Congo hemorrhagic fever.
So we've explained the name, but that just brings up more questions, doesn't it? Like, what is this virus, really? And how does it manage to travel all over the world? To answer that, we've got to look at the science.
The agent behind all this is a tiny but incredibly potent single-stranded RNA virus. Now, what that means is that its structure makes it a pretty nimble opponent. It's known to mutate pretty often. But, a virus can't just pack a bag and travel 5,000 kilometers by itself. It needs a ride.
And that ride comes from the hyaloma tick. This is the main vector, the carrier that shuttles the virus from animals to humans. And since these ticks are found all across Africa, Asia, and Eastern Europe, it suddenly makes sense how the virus got to be so widespread.
Because the virus is so closely tied to ticks and livestock, the people most at risk are the ones whose jobs put them in direct contact with them. We're talking about farmers, animal handlers, vets, and slaughterhouse workers. And, as we'll get into, once a human is infected, healthcare workers are also put at significant risk.
Understanding how this virus moves from host to host is absolutely critical if we want to prevent it from spreading. So let's break down that chain of transmission. The whole cycle kicks off when an infected tick bites livestock and passes on the virus. Then other uninfected ticks come along, feed on those same animals, and pick up the virus themselves. This just amplifies the virus in the local area. Humans get into the picture either by getting bitten by a carrier tick or by handling infected animal tissue, and from there, it can jump from person to person. So there are two main highways for this virus to get into people. First, it comes from the animal world, through tick bites or infected tissues. The second way, and this is what makes it so dangerous in a hospital setting, is direct human-to-human spread through contact with an infected person's bodily fluids.
Okay, given how serious this all is, being able to recognize the symptoms and knowing how to protect yourself is just vital. And you really need to take it seriously. This is not a mild illness. The case fatality rate for CCHF can be as high as 40%. That means up to 4 out of every 10 people who get it might not survive, making it one of the deadliest viral hemorrhagic fevers we know of. The illness usually starts abruptly: high fever, muscle aches, headaches, vomiting. But the real telltale signs are the hemorrhagic symptoms: bleeding from the gums, nosebleeds, and especially this: petechial hemorrhage. These are tiny red or purple spots on the skin caused by bleeding just underneath, and they are a classic sign of this kind of disease.
So what can you do? Well, for most people, prevention is really all about avoiding tick bites. Simple stuff helps a lot.
Wear light-colored clothing so it's easier to spot any ticks that get on you. Wear long sleeves and pants. And using a good tick repellent with DEET is an absolute must if you're in an at-risk area. Now, for folks in those high-risk jobs, the precautions have to be even more specific. Wearing gloves and protective clothing when you're handling animals, that's just non-negotiable. Quarantining new animals before they join the herd is a really smart move. And maybe most importantly, using approved chemicals called acaricides to control the tick population on animals and in their sheds is a huge step in breaking that cycle of transmission. And finally, in our hospitals and communities, stopping that human-to-human spread is everything. It all comes down to the fundamentals of infection control: strict hand hygiene, using full PPE when caring for patients, properly sterilizing all medical equipment, and making sure there are safe burial practices for those who tragically die from the disease.
You know, the story of Crimean Congo hemorrhagic fever is such a powerful reminder that diseases just don't respect borders. Its name, born from a wartime mystery and a Cold War-era scientific discovery, shows just how interconnected our world has always been. It leaves us with a pretty critical question for our own time. In a world where we're more connected than ever, what other medical mysteries are just waiting to be pieced together?